All right, welcome back, grade 9s. This is our third lesson of the day. So the first lesson looked at well-being. The second lesson introduced economic systems, starting with scarcity. And this third lesson is going to continue where that second lesson stopped. It's going to continue to talk about different types of economic systems. And this website has been linked to our Google Classroom, and I will link this video with it as well. And embedded in this website, there's also other videos that you can look at if you want to go down that rabbit hole further and continue to study these concepts. The nice thing about the website, there's also the people who created it bolded a lot of the key ideas. So getting started, in your notes we have economic systems, and we're going to continue to look at some of the recurring themes here. You can see that early on, one of the recurring themes that they talk about is scarcity. That countries do not have infinite resources. And because resources are finite, and because wants and needs are nearly infinite, we have scarcity. So, being that we have scarcity, we must make some decisions. What should we produce first? And once it's produced, who gets it? And how should we consume it? And by answering these questions, how we answer it creates a window into our priorities, our values. So sometimes these economic questions are called the basic economic questions. What's produced? Whom should we produce it for? Who gets it? How do we allocate it? And how do we produce it? Are we producing it to maximize employment, or are we producing this good to maximize efficiency? There's a way to produce even silly things like this mask that may create jobs, or we can mechanize the lobby, or sorry, not the lobby, the factory system, and by mechanizing it and using robotics, we might end up eliminating jobs. So what's the priority of how we're producing it? Is the priority to get it done quickly and cheaply, or is the priority, the reason for producing it, also to create jobs and to have a multiplying effect, stimulating the economy? So as we continue past the basic economic questions, we look at 4 types of economies. There's a quick video there for you, about 9 minutes long, that we're not going to watch together today, but it's in there for you for extra review if needed. So that's there for you. You can always go back and review before our evaluation next Monday. So the first type of economic system that they talk about is the traditional economic system. And this is the one that we saw in the last video, that is pre-industrial, that there's no machines being used, that the type of economic activities that they're engaged in are similar to what they may have been doing for hundreds or even thousands of years. So what does their economy look like then? The economy looks like often a bartering system, where there's a lot of trading happening. So somebody in town might be in town, somebody in the village might specialize in fishing, in hunting, in food gathering, in agriculture. Hello.
Cart 6.
I think cart 6 may be next door. Yeah. So somebody might specialize in fishing, hunting, food gathering, and agriculture, and maybe somebody else doesn't have those skills. So they might trade that food that the hunter, fisher, food gatherer, agricultural producer has. They might exchange those foods for someone else who is more inclined to make clothing. So somebody might be creating clothes by hand, taking animal skins and stuff like that, and somebody else might be making food. Somebody might be in charge of hunting the animals. So you might still have different jobs being created, but key points are there's no use of technology and very little profit being made. That it's more of a bartering between wants. And because the community is practicing subsistence, they're only producing as much as they need. There's going to be very little wasted. So one of the advantages of a traditional economy is there's very little waste. One of the disadvantages, there's not a lot of variety. There's not a lot of options here. And as you can see a little later here, one of the disadvantages is that there's not what we call social mobility. That whatever lot you're born into is no doubt the lot that you will be destined to remain in. That life is very static, very tribal, and in this tribal static life, if your dad's a farmer, no doubt that'll be your occupation. You don't have the social mobility to change your destiny like you might have under capitalism. Another issue that traditional societies may face is that they're very vulnerable to weather and climate change. And they might be nomadic people as well. And because of the nomadic lifestyle, traditional economies may be unable to create any real lasting impressionable like city-like dwellings, right? That they're going to have structures, but the structures will be more temporary in existence. Next up, we have the market economy. Market economy goes by many names, including free market or just simply capitalism. And capitalism will be connected to this guy, Adam Smith. So in your notes with market economy, I want you to put his name, Adam Smith. We're going to come back and watch this tomorrow. We're going to learn more about Adam Smith tomorrow. We're just still using this as an opportunity to introduce. But when you get to Social 30, Adam Smith will be one of the most recognized economists on the exams, and we really need to understand his philosophies. So one of the key ideas that he has is that demand should push the supply, meaning that why do people produce those Sour Patch Kids? Well, they produce Sour Patch Kids because they know it's profitable, that it's in demand. So if the economy, if capitalism is based on the idea that demand pushes supply, so if something's in demand and there's a shortage, then it's going to be high priced. And then that will encourage other people to start supplying it. So demand will push the supply. So that's a benefit because if there's a shortage, it's going to encourage people to get involved in the production of that thing that is in shortage. So, for example, living in 2020, there's a time this year where hand sanitizer was in high demand. People were paying a lot of money for it. So people started making it, companies started producing it, that they weren't normally in the business of hand sanitizer, but they jumped in because there was a shortage in society, people were demanding it, there wasn't enough on the market, and it was profitable to do so. So some people would suggest that the free market system, the capitalist system, is most efficient because our demands will be taken care of. What's going to be supplied? What people demand. When people demand something and it's not being supplied, and there's a lot of money out there for supplying it, then it's going to encourage people to get into that business. And then if so many people get into the hand sanitizing business, and suddenly there's too much on the market, nobody wants it anymore, then people move on to a different business. So people would look at that and say, well, there's great efficiency here. Another benefit that some people see in the capitalist system is that it is a market free of government. And sometimes the government can get in the way of business. So if the market over-regulates or over-legislates business, then it can slow down the business process. So laissez-faire by definition is hands-off. The government should keep their hands off business. By keeping their hands off of business, then in theory, the economy should be able to grow. Another advantage of a free market economy is there should be equality of opportunity. There should be free entry to the market. Without government interference, then I don't have to please the government to be able to start my shop. That if I want to start my shop, then I just start my shop. And at my shop, I offer stuff that you guys demand. And if nobody demands anything at my shop, then I don't have my shop anymore. I'm just trying to save my shop enough time so you guys are paying attention here. So, yeah, if you had to grease the palms of government officials in order to have a shop, then that's not equality of opportunity. Not everybody has enough grease for the government officials. That's mercantilism. That's the idea of royal monopolies. But what we have under capitalism is equality of opportunity. The invisible hand. Capitalism is a desirable system because it puts the onus of your interests in your hands. So you want a higher quality of life? You want a higher standard of living? Well, then work for it. The invisible hand is your own self-interest, your own greed. You want a nice car, you want a nice house, you want holidays and leisure time, you want a full stomach, then work for it. That if you expect someone else to work for your ends, then you will become dependent or reliant upon others and a burden on others. Capitalism is suggesting that you need to find a niche, something that you can do for the group of value. So if we were on a plane and our plane crashed and we were the survivors and we were on a tropical island, and in the group of 15 people, if 10 people said, you know what, I'm not really going to do anything. You know, I know we're going to be here for weeks, months, or maybe even years, but every day I'm going to just kind of go and work on my suntan. That's going to be my contribution to the group. I'm going to go out there and sit in suntan. But at the end of the day, I expect to be fed. And at the end of the day, I expect there to be shelter for me. Even though I have no interest in building or maintaining the shelter or finding food, I still have these needs and you need to take care of them. Taken to an extreme like that, we can see the problem when we drift away from capitalism. When we drift away from capitalism and suddenly people become dependent upon others, if you cross the threshold and too many people become dependent upon others, then the system collapses. If we crashed and only 5 people on this island are working, probably going to starve. So those 5 people that are working are probably going to say, you know what, why don't we go to the other side of the island? Let these 10 suntanners just hang out in suntan. We'll go fish and trap and hunt and do all these things we need on the other side, and we'll survive over there. Invisible hand, a niche. So, that, my friends, is capitalism. It's about efficiency. Next up, we have the command economy. And the command economy, the centrally planned economy, is an economy where the government answers those basic economic questions. And it is perhaps more humane. And we'll watch that video tomorrow. It's perhaps more humane because there will be people that will be protected from poverty. And it is the right thing to do, the human thing to do, to intervene on behalf of those who cannot take care of themselves. Socialism and communism, by definition, encourages people to be cooperative. The people put the collective interest ahead of their own self-interest. And that sounds the most idealist economic system we could think of. Finally, we have mixed economic systems like in Canada, where you take some of the aspects of individualism, of capitalism, and some of the aspects of socialism and collectivism, or centrally planned economics, and you put them together into a mixed economy. Hopefully you can take the best of both. You can understand the idea that capitalism has an unmatched ability to create wealth, but it's a very cruel distributor of wealth. So what we might need is a system where the government takes some of the wealth created by capitalism and redistributes it to those in need. So here in Canada, we do face high taxes, but in Canada, we do have a country that comes to the aid of people in need. We're going to finish up the class today with a 11-minute lecture from a student in London who is going to talk about the different economic systems. And he is going to talk about the advantages and key features and some of the disadvantages of these economic systems. So he's going to be writing notes on the board, it's going to be very easy for you to follow along and take some notes here as well. So at the end of the class today, you should be able to describe the different economic systems and be able to talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages and key features of them. All right, let's dive into this last little video.
In this video, I want to cover different economic systems to work out what the benefits of certain economic systems are, the negatives of other economic systems are, and then you can form your own opinion at the end what you think the best economic system is. This is quite an interesting topic, and a topic that's featuring more and more in exam situations, so it's important you have a good grasp of what the different economic systems are all about. Right, what I've done here is drawn a huge table of lots of different features that can occur in economies, and then we have to look at each economic system to see how each system will deal with some of these features. What are the systems I'm going to consider? I'm going to consider a market economy where markets are left to run free. You might have also heard about capitalism, that means the same thing. You might have heard of laissez-faire approaches, that means the same thing. Okay? You might have heard of liberalism, that implies we're looking at market economy. We're also looking at command economies, so we've heard of centrally planned economies, we've heard of socialism, that all means basically command economies. And we're also going to consider mixed economies, which is a mix of market and command-based approaches. Right? So in the market economy, the private sector is left to run freely. The private sector owns all the resources in the economy and allocates goods and services through market mechanisms. In command economies, it's the public sector. By public sector, I mean the government, the state. It's the state that controls all resources, that distributes resources, or hires wages, that gives incomes, etc. Okay. Right, let's go through each of these features and see how the market economy will deal with them and how the command economy will deal with them. I've already done the mixed economy. The mixed economy just takes what the market economy does and the command economy does and mixes the two together. So we will consider those briefly as well. Right, what is the motive of private firms? Well, motives are very simply to maximise profit. Right, so to maximise profit in market economies. For command economies, it's to maximise social welfare. Maximise the welfare of society, that's the motive in a command economy. Freedom of choice is going to be high in market economies and quite low in command economies. In command economies, the government decides what is produced and how much is produced. The market economy depends on what consumers and producers want and need. So higher choice in market economy. Level of competition, of course, will be much higher in market economies. In command economies, it's just nationalised industries that are operating. No chance of competition, much higher chance when there are free markets available and when there is a profit motive. The role of government, obviously, is low or very limited in market economies, and of course very high in command economies. The variety of goods and services and the quality of goods and services in market economies will be high, and relatively low in command economies. Let's understand why. In market economies, the incentives to maximise profits are to produce goods and services that consumers want and need, but to produce them at high quality to satisfy the needs and wants of consumers as much as possible. That means providing a variety of goods and services. That means ensuring quality is high. That incentive does not exist in command economies. Governments don't really have the same motives as private sector firms do. So therefore the quality may suffer. The variety produced may not be very high as well. Response to demand is going to be quick in command economies. And it's going to be slow. So it's going to be quick in market economies and slow in command economies. In market economies, you want to be the first mover. You want to be the first firm to react to an increase in demand if it's there, so you can maximise your profits. There is no such incentive in a command economy. Efficiency, therefore, well, there is going to be allocative efficiency in one sense in market economies, but there will be some inefficiency too. And now this is an important concept to consider. Allocative efficiency in terms of the wants and needs of consumers being met, quick response to demand, satisfying needs and wants of consumers, great. But also inefficiencies in terms of market failures, and we'll consider what those inefficiencies may be later. So yes, there may be some allocative efficiency where markets are working freely, but where free markets are being inefficient and causing market failures, then obviously there's going to be inefficiency there. So some aspects of efficiency, some of inefficiency, yes. In command economy, we can argue there might be low efficiency, but there will be some efficiency too. So low efficiency in terms of, there is no striving to cut costs, there may be waste going into nationalised firms, which is inefficient. There is no incentive to operate and use as many economies of scale as are available to a firm. But command economies are less likely to suffer from market failures in the same way that market economies are likely to suffer. So in that sense, potentially greater efficiency in that respect. Shortages and surpluses, there won't be existing in market economies, so no. Whereas in command economies, there is no price mechanism to ration surpluses and to ration shortages, and deal with shortages. So in that sense, yes, they may well exist in command economies. If we look at some of these specific goods and services, like merit goods, well, they're going to be underprovided in market economies. Whereas in command economies, you can expect merit goods to be provided with social optimum. In the market economy, self-interest and lack of information is a problem, which means that merit goods may not be provided at the socially optimum level. They're going to be under-consumed, under-provided. The demerit goods, they may well be over-provided in the market mechanism, whereas in a command economy, again, more likely to be provided at the social optimum. Again, the same reasons as before, a lack of information in the free market, the problem of self-interest in the free market leading to an over-provision, over-consumption of demerit goods. Whereas in a command economy, the chances are that resources will be allocated more towards a social optimum, less of these issues exist. Public goods, we know that in free markets, there may well be missing markets. Public goods may not be allocated at all, whereas again in command economies no such problems. They can be allocated. So when it comes to these kind of problems, these market failure potential issues here, then in a mixed economy, that's when the government will get involved. That's when the government will say, right, there are some major negatives and free market ideas here, let's intervene and solve these problems. That's when it will happen. Income distribution, a lot of economists argue that there would be an unequal distribution of income in market economies, whereas in command economies it would be equal. Why would it be unequal in market economies? Well, because there is no way to redistribute income to those that earn a lot, to those that don't earn a lot. There is no way to safeguard those that are poor in society, those that are living in relative poverty. So in that sense, there can be lots of people at the top end earning huge amounts of income, and lots of people at the bottom end earning very, very, very limited amounts of income. So therefore, high levels of income inequality, no way of dealing with that. Whereas in a command economy, distribution of income will be as equal as possible. In a mixed economy, the way to deal with these problems is to ensure that there are tax systems that are progressive, where you can tax the rich and redistribute some of that income to the poor in society, and there'll be a welfare state to make sure that if people don't have jobs, they can still have income in terms of unemployment benefits. Also, pensions can exist so that the elderly can actually gain incomes in their retirement through pension schemes. What about negative externalities? Well, if there are negative externalities, they are going to exist in market economies, and market economies will not deal with them efficiently. So, what that's going to lead to is an overproduction of goods and services that generate negative externalities, whereas in a command economy, we're more likely to get the social optimum. Again, the problem here is of self-interest. In the market economy, profit maximization means negative externalities in consumption and in production are ignored, which can lead to overproduction and overconsumption of goods and services that generate negative externalities. Monopolies can well exist in market economies, definitely not in command economies. So in market economies, the risk of dominance of industries can take place. And when monopolies exist, that can lead to inefficient outcomes, higher prices, lower choice, lower quantities, poorer quality for consumers. And again, in mixed economies, this is when the government will intervene. Say for negative externalities, that's when the government will intervene and solve these market failures. In the real world, there are no actual pure market economies, but countries like the USA, like Singapore, are very market-oriented. Whereas for command economies, similarly, there aren't any pure examples of command economies, but countries like North Korea, countries like Cuba, are good examples of command economies, or close to being command economies. In the past, the USSR was an actual command economy. Most economies in the world are actually mixed economies. They have elements of market-based approaches and command-based approaches at varying degrees. Some countries may favour market-based approaches, but still with a role of government to play. Some will prefer the role of government, but with some elements of market-based approaches as well. So this is a very useful grid for you to write down, and you'll see here what the benefits of market-based approaches are and where market-based approaches can actually be limited, and similarly where command economies have benefits and where command economies can be let down as well. So if you have to answer an essay, if you need to actually talk about some of the features of these economies, this table will do it for you. So get this written down, learn it, and it'll be well and good for your exam.
Alright, so I assume you guys wrote it down, but if you didn't, I'm going to leave it up there. I'm going to end the video here.